being a resident isn't about whether you own or rent. It's the fact that you live there.
So this whole manual labor that used to be done is being eliminated by automation. So that's one thing. What does that do? Well, that allows some pressure relief for the teams.
It is the biggest mistake that people could make, is going business as usual, going back to basics. It is death for a company. Oftentimes, there's certain things that make sense to go back to basics on. When it comes to tech, you have to look at the innovation around the corner.
What you can't go is to the guy who worked on the property for 30 years to answer the question, because he's not there anymore.
Yep.
You have to figure it out on your own, right? Yep. And then how is that instant education? That's something that the industry isn't really, the industry's doing, but the association's not exploring. It's the instant education piece. I think what you're saying is we're not tapping the people that are outside the people that are normally there. And so we have our set committees, but why don't we have a robot committee?
Well, they're checking YouTube, but YouTube is not better information. So my answer to them is that, do you have a better tool for them?
Right.
What do you do for them that's better than YouTube? And they don't.
It's the driving topic across the board for almost every political candidate, no matter where you look, is housing affordability is number one on almost all of their agendas. Mm-hmm. And that puts our industry completely under fire. And yes, there are a lot of
Well, Todd, this is going to be fun.
Yes, it is.
We already have two great friends here. This is actually going to be like a crossover podcast. It's kind of like when The Simpsons had the Family Guy on for one of their episodes.
Very much.
Yeah. Todd, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Todd Whitlow. I'm a partner and founder of Brownlee, Whitlow, and Prate. We are a law firm operating in the multifamily space based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, but we have offices in Raleigh, Charlotte, Charleston, Greenville, Atlanta, and now Richmond. So we represent much of the multifamily industry in their operations and risk management side. And on my side, I like to co-host this podcast with you, Bryan.
All right. And we're here today to join by two guests, or technically, there are two hosts. Depends how you're listening to this. But Chris Moreno is known in real estate and technology circles as Mr. PropTech, is a serial entrepreneurial investor, podcast host, proud father of 3 boys, with roughly 20 years of experience spanning enterprise technology, prop tech, and multifamily real estate. He, or you, have built solid multiple companies and invested over 100 startups. So you built and sold companies, 100 startups, and more than 1,200 multifamily units.
Yeah.
All right.
Investing, yeah.
Okay. Chris hosts the podcast, The Multifamily Hangout, where he engages in deeply with leading developers, investors, entrepreneurs to unpack the future of real estate through technology and innovation. You also contribute actively to the industry associations such as the National Apartment Association, the Multifamily Housing Coalition, and the Urban Land Institute. And you're driven by one simple mission: to help founders and operators who see what's next before the world does.
Man, my assistant did a great job of writing that.
Yes, yeah, and I almost did a good job of saying it. I only screwed up 4 or 5 lines in it. So, and then Todd, you're going to introduce the other.
I'm going to do
guest
Adrian.
host.
Yes, Adrian Danila is a seasoned multifamily housing professional whose energy and insight elevate every discussion. With more than 2 decades in the industry, he has worked across operations, technology, and team leadership to drive meaningful change in property management and resident experience outcomes. His passion lies in bridging the gap between strategic vision and on-the-ground execution, whether that means streamlining vendor relationships, deploying smart building technologies, or empowering frontline staff to own their roles. Adrian's blend of analytical rigor and boots-on-the-ground empathy makes him both an effective leader and a trusted partner for teams looking to transform how they manage real estate assets. Outside of his day-to-day, Adrian is committed to mentoring the next generation of multifamily professionals and advancing industry-wide dialogue around equity, innovation, and operational excellence.
Thanks, guys, for inviting us to your studio.
Thank you for the great intro, and welcome to Atlanta.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. This is going to be fun.
Yeah,
it is indeed. We've been looking forward to this discussion. I mean, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Multifamily Hangout? What started it? What prompted you guys? How did you guys connect and get together to begin hosting the Hangout?
So I'm going to start right. 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I had this idea. I'm going to do. It's supposed to be my second podcast. The first one was Multifamily Chronicles, which I have now for over 4 years. And I said I want to try a different format, and this is going to be a male-female co-host. And I found at the time someone that was a female individual that was interested, someone I knew. We never met in person, but we've been connected. She's been on my original podcast as a guest. I was on her podcast. She was also a host, and we just kind of decided to do this one together, right? To join forces, and we did a number of episodes, probably like 6 or 7 or 8, I should say. And then, for personal reasons, not like a lack of alignment. For personal reasons, she had to say, I can dedicate more time to this project, which I understood. At the time, Chris and I knew each other for a good, probably like 6 months, I should say, or less. And I've asked him, my idea was, okay, now since she's not in a picture, I'm going to continue, but I will scout for guest hosts. And I will just rotate all sorts of guest hosts with me to co-host. And I asked Chris, I said, would you be interested in, guest hosting this podcast? And he said, no, I'm actually interested, to be all in, to like co-host for good. And I said, that's even better. I don't have to go scout for co-host. So let's try this, right? Let's see how this is going to work. So over 2 years later, we're a lot of episodes in, close to 100, probably like 70, 80. We don't really, we stopped counting.
Oh, wow.
How about this? I'll give you my take because I have a very different story.
Sorry about that.
That's the first time I've heard that one. So I've never heard that before. So your question again was, let me try it.
Yeah. So how did you guys decide to start the Multifamily Hangout?
Yeah.
How did you connect?
He has great expertise and knowledge in the world of real estate, and he's been at ownership companies. He knows a ton about things I don't know anything about, like on the facilities management, how to dig up pipes, how to fix the toilets, how to manage hundreds and thousands of people in the fields, right, to keep these properties operating. I come from a background of technology, right? How to use technology on operations, fintech technologies, those types of things. And so he was like, I want to tell my story. He started this podcast. He also has the maintenance podcast where he interviews all types of people across the country. And I was like, this is brilliant. And so when I had always looked at wanting to do a podcast, but I learned that it's a lot of work to do things on your own. Oftentimes when you're successful, fortunately, like when we sold our companies, we always had other people and we were successful together. And I look for people that I want to be successful with. And so when I saw him doing this podcast, I was like, I need to connect with him. I'd love to be a guest on your podcast. And it just turned out his last host said, hey, I can't do this. And I jumped right in. And so we've now done over 100 episodes. It's been a blast. So interviewing these, I think the key thing was I wanted to, and I think we share this mission, is we both wanted to be able to tell the stories of these CEOs. We're oftentimes behind the windows and the walls, and they don't get to tell their stories. And we get to bring these CEOs in. We'll have, their stories, their leadership, and be able to share that with the world. So it's pretty awesome. So, a little bit different, but I think, the passion for wanting to get the stories out and the passion for wanting to enable those people to brag a little bit, like you guys hopefully will get to do today with us.
Well, they bring in high-end CEOs, and now they have Todd and Bryan, who are...
We're in elite territory.
Yeah. You've got a niche, and that's the key thing I look for. Like, what's your niche? What is your superpower? What are you really good at? And then also, digging in, we've had some hosts cry. We had someone talk about, possibly having their wives leave them, right, or their significant other, and having to rethink about life and where they were at. So we always learn so much from these episodes. But I'll ask you guys, how did you meet to do your episode?
Bryan, I'll let you take it away first.
All right. Well, we were in a bar, which is typically how these stories start. And I've been kicking around this idea of doing a podcast around the association side of things. And I was telling Todd, I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And Todd's like, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And we're like, well, maybe we should just do a podcast together. And that would just be a lot easier than kind of doing it separate. So a year later, we actually got around to putting together the podcast. And what we kind of, talk about the niche and things that are separated. Our big joke was, okay, finally, we've done a podcast. Now everyone in the industry is doing a podcast. And our thing that's a little bit different is that we really focus from the association aspect of we're here for an association meeting. A lot of people are here for the association meeting and talk about where the association and the industry intersect.
Yeah.
Because the industry with the CEOs and stuff, the conversation that you're talking about, that's one part of the world. The association piece is a different part of the world, right? And to understand that the industry exists without the association does not exist without the industry. And so how do they work in, what is the roles and the piece on that? And so with my background, I do association management work. So I work with a handful of smaller to mid-sized association. And then, Todd does a lot of work with associations, special counsel and stuff like that. And so we kind of have this unique perspective of coming from insider, kind of outsider piece on this.
Yeah.
And so we talk about the way that the industry and the association kind of overlap.
Great.
How do you do?
Yeah, I thought you did pretty well. I mean, we had the original conversation was at a bar. It was probably at Assembly of Delegates, and then we continued to discuss it at almost every NAA conference for the preceding or the following year, leading to AOD of the next year, in which we said, okay, we're going to finally do this. And so, we joke with you guys in setting up that we really wanted to just kind of figure out a way to be the talent and show up and ask questions and be the kind of TV show host.
Yeah.
And we kind of finally found that. We had been bouncing around within our firm for a while, the idea of doing a podcast. Had a lot of cheesy names to it. And then Bryan and I started this conversation. I was like, it's much easier to do it as a group as opposed to doing it solo.
Yeah.
Because, we joked in the firm, I'm already relatively busy. And then trying to come up with content creation, guest lists, questions for guest lists, all of that in and of itself is pretty much a full-time job. And so when we had this discussion, I was like, sign me up wherever I need to sign up. I'm ready to do it. And we do have a unique, we've always served in kind of leadership roles, and we have a leadership mindset of how do we grow? How do we make it better? And I think looking at it through the lens of the association is important. There are a lot of industry podcasts out there, and we can easily get lost in the noise. I think what makes ours slightly different is driving home the importance of collective effort in this industry, especially in a time when it's been under fire more than it ever has before. And talking about housing affordability, it had never been a federal political campaigning tool until probably the last 2-3 presidencies. And now all of a sudden it's the driving topic across the board for almost every political candidate, no matter where you look, is housing affordability is number one on almost all of their agendas. And that puts our industry completely under fire. And yes, there are a lot of great companies out there who are run by excellent CEOs, but getting them back plugged into a collective group that has a much larger voice remains critically important, because once you see people rise to that strata of leadership, they frequently get disconnected from the association because they're too busy doing all the other things. And that's really when the association needs their knowledge and their wisdom to try and how to make the industry better.
I think and to your point, so many people don't realize what happens in an association. These nonprofits that are advocating not only on behalf of owners and managers and operators, but also residents, right? Because oftentimes there's misinformation out there, and part of their job is educating legislatures, right? And making sure things work. And if you hinder the ability to, as a good example, development, you hinder more housing, just supply and demand, you're going to instantly increase the cost of rent. So I think one of the most exciting things I love is with the associations is telling great stories around things the industry is doing with residents, on behalf of residents, helping residents. That's something I get a lot of pleasure on our podcast of doing.
So true. You look at the realtors. That's an association.
Yep.
Right? And they've done such a great job over 50 years of selling the concept of home ownership and the importance of single family and tying that to the American dream and stuff like that. We're seeing in the back end, renters kind of got lost in this. Sometimes often seen as second-class citizens, having other issues, seeing it's not, if you're renting, you're stuck. You just haven't gotten yet to the home ownership piece. And so we're seeing our association start building around a little bit of that concept, even leaning into renting is a great lifestyle. And we need to remind people that, being a resident isn't about whether you own or rent. It's the fact that you live there.
So it's a lifestyle. Now, when it comes to the general perception, right? Is it more of a lifestyle, or is kind of like a limited choice, a result of a limited choice that's being sprung from the lack of affordability that we talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on who you ask, right? I mean, I think if you're asking the majority of the politicians, they're continuing to sell the idea of home ownership is the American dream, but they're disconnected from their constituents because many of them are choosing to live in apartment communities because it's like living on a landlocked cruise ship because of all the amenities that you have.
Mhm.
And yes, the rent may be a little bit more than what they may want to pay, but it now includes a gym membership because there's gyms on site. It may include a valet trash service, which takes your trash from your door to the dumpster. It includes any number of additional services. Many of them, landscaping. They have movie theaters. Some of them have golf simulators.
Yeah.
Like any number of facilities.
Podcast
Correct.
studios.
Yeah.
I have a friend that just purchased 6 months ago. He purchased a student property in Tennessee. He has like extra space. He's building a podcast studio for the students, for the residents,
I love the
basically.
saunas, the gyms,
Yeah.
you're seeing the steam rooms.
Yeah.
And just more things also, like you're seeing a lot more events where it's bringing, like apartment life, bringing events every single week. I've heard some properties are doing like 3 days a week of events.
And if you add those costs together, your home mortgage goes up a lot higher.
Yeah.
Right? But we take the rent and we take this 30% number that someone made up once and we apply it to somebody's mortgage, and then we apply it to renters who are paying so much more that's coming out of their rental fee. And those are by choices. You don't have to live in a rental community with all the bells and whistles, right? But you can, and you're getting that piece added in, and then that cost gets wrapped into housing affordability when it's really a lifestyle piece. So
my sisters all choose to rent. They all have had the opportunity to buy, yet they want to rent because they like the flexibility, they like the amenities. And literally, I have my sister and she's going to get married soon, and they have lived, I think, in 4 different buildings, and I just found out they're living in one of the nicest, coolest buildings, I should say, newer buildings in Oakland. Okay. And they love it. And they love that community because the minute you move to a neighborhood, you got to make new friends. You become the landlord. You become the person who has to fix everything up. As Adrian knows, I go to him for advice all the time on my 85-year-old house in Atlanta. So.
Well, and then once you buy, you have to be there for 5 years just to start talking about breaking even, right? This idea that your home is an investment versus your home is where you live is a different mentality. And I think sometimes we've been pushed so far and you have to, it's a great investment, it's a great investment, it's a great investment. It also can be a really bad investment. If you buy and get out early, then it's like, well, you left a lot of money on the table. That's not great. But if you have the flexibility of renting, it's a lot easier to pick up and move from a rental situation than to buy a new house every 5 years.
Our last guest in the seat, Norman Radow from Radco, he said, you got to be able to sustain the cycles. You can't sustain. That's why he's back buying properties, is because other people couldn't sustain the longevity, to your point.
Yeah. I mean,
I want to tell you about our new sponsor, iRestify. Property managers, here's the truth. Happy residents stay longer, and clean properties create happy residents. That's exactly what iRestify does. They specialize in multifamily cleaning and maintenance services that keep your residents happy and buildings pristine. They handle everything from common areas to turnovers. iRestify provides fully vetted professional cleaning teams and uses its proprietary platform to remotely monitor, schedule, and manage cleaning and maintenance operations across property portfolios. You get proof of service, quality inspections, and resident satisfaction reports, all through one easy app. Visit iRestify.com to see why so many multifamily pros are switching to iRestify.
Focusing back to you guys' podcast, I mean, what we've got over 100 guests to pull from, but what are some examples from some of those guests in which they've talked about the culture of their organization, and why that is critically so important to their overall success? Do you guys have any examples?
Yeah, we had multiple examples when it comes to culture. what we also learn is that there's a lot of repetitive answers, right? That's that's one thing. And then also what I've learned from personal experience is that, however, companies with a very top C culture, it's not necessarily how, your team at the site level sees. And I see each company having several cultures. I'm going to explain. Is the culture that's being built around the C-suite and what they want for the company culture to be. A second culture is one that's being built around each regional. Each person, like if you're looking at each region in a larger company that has like 2 or more regionals, you're going to see specific types of, characteristics of a culture that's like related. You could tie right back, you will tie right back into the regional's personality and what they're caring for and what they're focusing on. So that's one. And then you have one that's like site level, that's being the culture that's being led or driven by your community manager and your service manager. So I'm seeing these 3 different cultures that you will be looking. And when you're looking at a company like Greystar, or you could take RPM or Asset Living that manage hundreds of thousands or even 1 million units, like you're talking about thousands of cultures there, right? Because remember, they have hundreds or maybe thousands of regional managers and so many thousands of properties. So you're talking about so many. As much as a large corporation will try to have a culture that like basically follows the same type of principles, they embrace the same type of things, it's nearly impossible because of the human nature and because of the size of the company. It's not that intentionally this happens, just unintentionally. And you could look at other large corporations outside of multifamily. I think that you will be finding similar things if you were to actually looking with a magnifying glass.
I'll say it one sentence. Dr. Debbie probably summed it up pretty well. I might be misquoting her, but culture is what you do, not what you say. And so I think the key thing I've seen from people on our podcast is what are they actually giving in terms of responsibility to their teams and showing them when they make mistakes that they're welcome to make mistakes and that they're supported and it's okay. Obviously, if they didn't bankrupt the company or lose a property, but that is ultimately, you can talk about all the events you do, but it's how do you feel? And the way you feel is if you felt supported, you're given responsibility, and your team respects you, and you have a voice at the table. So Dr. Debley is one of our great.
That's interesting.
Episodes.
I talk to associations. There's a clear break. There's the people who've been around for a very long time, and there's the people who are just now getting involved. And the people who've been around for a very long time say, "Well, that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. We did that in the past; it doesn't work." And I'm like, "We can't do that because." You have to allow these people to make the same mistakes that you made because 1, they think that they can do it better than you. And 2 is that you learned from that and you're robbing them the opportunity to make that mistake. Now, you want to make sure that your mistakes are manageable, right? But it's like, hey, we tried that in the past and didn't work is the most deflating thing that someone comes with a brand new idea. It's like, well, we can't do this again. So what now, because you weren't very good at doing it the first time, we can never try this idea again, is what they're hearing from their side. And it's almost like, I'm sorry, we don't really need you. We know how to do what we're going to do. Thank you very much for participating.
Every $1 billion, $100 billion, and $1 trillion business is someone saying that the root cause of someone saying that won't work.
Right. Yep.
Amazon, Nvidia, these were little tiny startups that nobody believed in. Very few people. Luxor One, Laundry Locker, same thing. And they turned into successful, not only businesses, entire new sectors that completely changed the game and blew away the experts who had been in the industry 30, 40 years and said, I will never buy that. I will never use that. Yet they're using it every day now.
And so what you're either doing is reaffirming the point that we tried it again, it still doesn't work, or 2, figuring it out, and then all of a sudden you have a new avenue to go. So it's almost worth it to explore the idea out to see where it's going to go.
That's the coolest thing too. We get a great, and you probably do too, is what I love about, and especially this week, when we go to Capitol Hill and we go to these events, is you can sit down in just a matter of 2 or 3 days with 20 to 30 people, and you can literally see 10 to 15 different ways of doing the same thing. And I'll ask people the same questions, yet I hear multiple answers. And that's something I've learned from some of the larger owners. I said, wow, you have 7 management companies? Well, I know someone who has 12 management companies across the country.
Is that because each state has different regulations as to how it's set up?
It's actually that's not what they told me as much. That's part of it.
Okay.
Part of it is, and some don't operate in certain markets, so they have to use someone different. But they could probably be down to 3 if they wanted to. But the reason they use so many is they found it's about the team in the very local market. Almost anybody who uses one says they're great here, not so good here. It's just, they're maybe third in that market.
Right.
They're first in this market. And so it's like anything. When you choose something, you're never the best at everything. But that's why the number one reason I've heard people say the reason we use so many different people is it allows us, essentially it's an ongoing RFP. So we're always thinking about changing. They know they're on their toes and they have to treat us with respect. If not, and in that way, we can also hear different perspectives, to your point. Mm-hmm. We are not the smartest people in the room. We needed to know from them, boots on the ground, what are they seeing? Now we're basically getting, free, if you will. The cost is the expertise on the ground, and you're paying for it and having to work with different integrations.
So how do you think, I'm going to ask you how somebody else can answer a question. That's going to be great. How do you think they would answer the fact that if you're always on your toes, though, and you're worried that you could be replaced by somebody else,
yes,
that you're too focused on today and then not looking for the long-term future? Because if you make those mistakes, the guy right behind you is going to jump on it and you're going to be gone, versus just like, hey, we're going to invest a year, and then from a year out, we're going to be such in a better place, but you have to let me get through the season first.
And so I can tell you, because I've heard the answer. I ask this question all the time. So one of the groups I'm an advisor to that is an owner, and they own over close to 7,000 units now. They're closing in on. And they use a company, and many people, this answer is from multiple people. When they use one person, they've made a decision, they're 30 days out in any contract.
All right.
But the reason they're not going to cancel for probably at least a year, if not longer, 2 years, is because it's trust. If I was to treat you that way and actually cancel your contract because of something in 3 months, other people are going to look and they go, oof, we better actually not work with this company because they're a disaster to work with. The word gets around when people don't pay their bills. Just like when a resident doesn't pay their bills, it follows them right around on their credit score. Same thing follows them in this industry, the good actors and the bad actors, right? And so at the end of the day, I would say if an ownership group isn't in partnership with that management group, it's going to be a very short relationship, and they're not going to many people will turn that. We've been told multiple times, we don't work with those people from management owners, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, same thing. Like if you were going to do business with someone or you were going to work with a partner and they said, well, we'll see, versus I love it, let's start doing business together. That's what I think about all the time is people who see it and are willing to take the risk and bet on you. Comes back to culture. Am I willing to bet on you? Am I willing to take a risk with you? If so, that's good. That's a beautiful relationship versus being, like we talked about earlier, are you really, can you make a decision?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you're describing is the difference between leading and managing someone. I mean, leading them is you create a vacuum and then you encourage them to step into it and you give them the autonomy to make decisions. You give them a broader mission statement and then say how you achieve that mission is incumbent upon you. Mm-hmm. This is the goal. This is what you have to do. Obviously, within the rules of ethics and everything else, you can do what you need to do. You have the autonomy for decision making to take this and get it to there. And I think it's a lot different than managing, because managing, you're doing all the decision making and the person is just doing the acting. And I think what most organizations look for, and it's certainly this next generation of people who are coming up in the workplace, they're looking for those opportunities that they can have some autonomy and the ability to make some decisions and the grace to understand that as long as they're not bankrupting the company, everything else can be fixed.
And I think back to a story, and I'd love to hear Adrian's thoughts on this. Early in his career, at Macy's Corporate was my first job out of college. And I heard that all the time. Oh, I did that 10 years ago. It didn't work. Oh, I did this. And I always would ask, what went wrong? Or, okay, first want to hear the story of what went wrong. And then, and I learned to ask in this order, what would have had to work for that? What would have had to happen for that to be successful? And that's where you uncover. And so I see it all the time today. To your point, I've just had that over, I actually, you can see the shoulder is permanently, actually, I have a doctor's note because this is about 1 inch lower. So it's because I have 8,000 people telling me I can't do stuff. And it's just chips sitting on my shoulder. And so the key is like I've learned is that you learn why it didn't work before, what would have to be true. And then if it did work, is there money there? Is there a better experience? Is it save time? What is it? I mean, I always look for areas where there's great pain, great amounts of money and capital being made. But I mean, in your world, right, of you think about like facility management and operations, there's so much pain. Mm-hmm. There's so much capital. There's so much humans issues, and we can't build robots fast enough to keep up with it, right, with the labor shortage. But what are you seeing?
Yeah, well, and not everything is going to be, or everybody's going to be replaced by a robot in a facilities line of business. It's always been fascinating to me that solutions are pretty simple, right, to simple issues. I mean, they're being exacerbated because, they just grew to become big problems over the years. But it's also, I think, something that we tend to jump over without actually taking the time to address is the very basic things that you have to do on a daily basis. And we're missing that, and we're jumping over. And then we're saying we're gonna do like better things, for example, centralization, bigger and better things. When you can't really, centralization, for example, is just super scaling a business.
Right.
Every apartment community that's institutional, 100 or 200 units or more, people tend to forget that it's a business that's already been scaled. There's 200 doors, 200 apartments, 200 families. That's a scale business. Mm-hmm. When you try to expand that to like 2,000 units, you 10x that particular, so you super scale. You can't really super scale without actually first making sure that you're doing the basics right, because what you're gonna do, the issues that you have initially with one is they're gonna just multiply by a lot, and it becomes like you're increasing the pain levels to levels that are unmanageable. So I think that serious look at the basics, right? How do we do everything? How do we serve a resident? How do we turn a unit? Like very, very basic 101, maintenance 101, and property management 101. It's not just about the maintenance. They're being overlooked, and we tend to think that bigger solutions are actually the way to go when everything is like run in front of our eyes. And simple things, simple tweaks, back to the basic stuff, could make the biggest difference ever. I've seen this again and again and over.
All right, Chris. So I don't know what fintech is, but I pretend.
Okay.
I think it's like an ATM, but a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
Okay. I definitely don't know what prop tech is. So what's the difference between prop tech and fintech? Obviously, they're different because they're different words.
We can talk through construction tech. There's
Are we just putting tech? Are we putting tech behind every word now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there law tech?
You have MarTech, law tech.
Law tech is a thing.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, now accounting tech is the hottest trend, which is kind of fintech, but accounting.
Do technologies have
legal,
tech? Is there tech?
It's a great question. That's a deeper question. Well, that's AI. I think that's just AI.
AI.
That's just AI. It's the tech exponentially on top of it, and I think it goes back to the question of that, like Adrian said, robots aren't going to replace everything we do. AI isn't going to replace everything we do.
So is prop for property?
Prop is for property.
Okay.
And so some people think about it as some people define prop tech as just the things that help a property operate. Mm-hmm. And then they define construction tech as the hardware stuff. I think about prop tech as the generalization of anything that touches a property. So that's inclusive because and that can be fintech elements that also tie into property tech. So oftentimes you'll have a fintech company like, let's say, a Plaid or a Square or a Stripe. Maybe there's other, a lot of the payments companies we know of. You even have like travel and leisure, Airbnb. Airbnb could be considered a prop tech company because it helps the operations of any real estate and property, but it also is doing leisure and travel and hotel. So I think about anything that touches the real estate experience, from logistics to multifamily housing, but also the office experience. You think about many of the large PMSs, they're also servicing commercial properties and warehouses. So, and I think about things in the architecture space. Architecture right now is undergoing a major shift. So architects oftentimes are doing hotels, They're doing office spaces like this. They're doing theme parks and hospitals and airports. I got to tell you, every time I go into, and I think about, to answer your question even more specifically, is when I go into an airport and I walk in and I think about right when I get off from a vehicle, the first step I take to walking across that crosswalk, and there's a police officer standing there, right? Mm-hmm. Should he be there? Should he not? Should I have had a way to get over the traffic? So it's the design. What's the technology allowing me to not get hit by a vehicle? To walking in to multi-directional work, and there's like a Delta Airlines invested in a company that's called Misapplied Sciences, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. And they built this new technology where you walk in with like your phone, and it shows you, we could all be standing right here looking at the screen, and it shows me my flight. The board only shows my flight and shows me my restaurant and then how many minutes it's going to take off, and it has my points on the screen. For you, 2 feet over, 1 foot over, it shows everyone something different. And I think about that as those are the things that help us run the experiences at our properties. And it's really about one key phrase, focusing on the built world. So anything in the built world is what I play. And then there's sectors within multifamily, people like at OpTech and NAA and NMHC, they really just focus more on things that touch multifamily. But here's what I've discovered. That's why it's so exciting. You'll meet a lot of executives who are the CTOs, the heads of customer experience. And a lot of them will say, actually this year I'm going to 3 outside multifamily events. I'm trying, so and they'll ping me and say, hey, can you show me some things outside of our sector, still in housing, still in real estate, but something totally different, like a MarTech conference, right? Okay. Or a Salesforce conference, that we can then bring those companies back and apply them. So that's how I think about it. And I think about anything that helps the owners and investors to the operations teams, and then like at Retzi next week at OpTech, they're gonna have robots, they're gonna be hardware. And I think those are really important because when someone's making a decision on their building, you're sometimes making a decision for the next 5 to 7 years, right? Yep. And especially in maintenance, it might be even longer, right?
Well, Adrian, I think on a recent podcast, you guys said that skilled laborers are going to be the new millionaires. Welders, plumbers, you guys talked about that a little bit. And then this new concept, never thought about that, I think you said, well, machines don't take a break. And it was like, yes, actually machines do take a break. They get sick, they just can't heal themselves, right? Which kind of leads back what you were saying earlier, is that AI and machines aren't going to replace all people. So what are that skill set, or how are you seeing that tech role changing as this new robots and technologies come into play?
So I think I'm seeing entire jobs just disappearing. For example, roofers. There's robots out right now available that are getting up on a roof and installing roof. Drywall installers, same thing. They made robots that having the capability to do that. On the other hand, you're gonna need someone to maintain those robots. That's not a job that exists today, but it's going to, right? Mm-hmm. Is it gonna be like as many people as they used to work and do labor and hang out drywall? No, for sure not. There'll be other opportunities for them. The opportunities that I'm seeing, I'm seeing other areas that, for example, that you can't really easily like replicate. It's not like a repetitive task. So in apartment maintenance, we have a ton of those, right? Every task is different. Sometimes you might find, like very simple, like changing a light bulb. Maybe a robot will do that one day, right? Change light bulbs and do like very simple tasks. When it comes to like changing garbage disposal, just imagine like you don't have anything standardized. Every single under the sink plumbing is different, right? And to build a robot that complex to be able to handle all of those, is it impossible? No. But is it gonna be like an immediate thing? I doubt. Right? We're not there yet. We're not close to be there yet. So I'm seeing that technology. So first of all, AI will eliminate some repetitive tasks that I was talking about. For example, typical old school maintenance site team is your service manager comes in before the team comes in. They print all the pending work orders and they put them in stacks, and the team comes in and they hand them those tickets based on their abilities. Now, you have technology that does all of that for you. Like, you don't have to print a ticket, you don't have to assign. You literally just build a technician profile with their strengths and weaknesses, and the system automatically assigns those to them. You could even set minimums for each one of them, work orders in a queue, And if you, let's just say that you set a minimum to 5, and they're just picking one of the 5, as soon as that's completed, the system pushes another one, a 5th one, into their queue. So this whole manual labor that used to be done is being eliminated by automation. So that's one thing. What does that do? Well, that allows some pressure relief for the teams, because we have very high levels of employee turnover at the site level in maintenance. Then you would not hear high-level executives talking on the record, because those numbers are horrific. I have one good note from like leaders at very large operators. They're saying our turnover in various areas, like Southeast, for example, for service managers is 90%.
Wow.
Wait, pause. 90% turnover rate?
On a good note, very, very good source, right? 90%, let's just say Southeast to take that. Or we could say Southwest. We could say whatever, like in a particular geographic area. Very large operator, let's just say one of the top 10, right? Operators, they're facing 90% at service manager level. So what that causes is a lot of disruption, obviously, right? It's pretty obvious. And then you can never build legacy knowledge at the space, never, right? Now, there's also a good news out there. The good news is that you could actually deploy technology that helps you build that knowledge, right? Let's just say that you have an employee that came in, they didn't spend a lot, maybe 6 months at the property. But the technology allows you to harvest as much of that information that they gain over the 6 months and store it so the next person picks up where the previous person left off, right? So that's a real thing. And I even suggested, I have clients that I'm working with. I even suggested, point in case, there's a gentleman that works for one of my clients. He's been working at a company, I think, 27 years. He knows every single property like the back of his hand, whether it's garden style or high rise. He will take me places and he'll show me like all the mechanics and everything, the HVAC systems all the way at the top of the building. And I asked him, where is this information stored? He said, here. So I said, just here? Yeah, just like right here. Well, imagine if the person walks out, or God forbid something happens to them. Like the amount of pain that this company is gonna be in an instant, it's unmeasurable, unthinkable. So what I suggested to the leadership out there was buy some GoPro cameras and have this individual do the orientation. Do the orientation with every single one of his, service managers, and record that, capture that on camera. You could drop that video into AI, and AI could actually capture all of that and write reports that could actually stay there. And until something changes, that's be something for the next person, and one after to go back and just find it, right? That's the beauty of technology nowadays.
It's time gate entry systems were reimagined. Tired of dealing with clickers, key fobs, broken call boxes, and keypads everyone has the code to? Imagine managing multiple properties and realizing your keys are miles away. With Gatewise, access is in your pocket. No codes, no hassle. Residents can let in guests or deliveries from anywhere with a single tap. Gatewise integrates with your property management system, automatically revoking access when residents move out. The Gatewise management portal makes it easy to control every access point remotely from any device. No dedicated computer required, just smart, flexible control at your fingertips. Gatewise also supports self-storage, giving your team cloud-based control over tenant access. Fast, secure, and fully remote. More convenience for your residents, more time and cost savings for your team.
I knew a hotel company. Actually, wasn't a company. It was a hotel, and they required all the maintenance guys to use the exact same cell phone. So it was one cell phone and to pass it. You're like, what is this? Because it has all the numbers in it. And we realized is that people were coming or going and needed to call somebody. The cell phone had everyone's number. And he's like, oh, this is a brilliant idea. He's like, yeah, we just actually figured it out one day when someone else inherited somebody else's cell phone. And they realized in all the contacts, right, was all the people to call. Yep. And so I never even thought about that, like even taking that further to like, hey, we did this before. And then now it's logged and that guy's gone and somebody's in and he can go back and go, okay, here's how we did that before. It's like having that cell phone. The other thing is, in the association world, are we talking about robots at all?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that many people mean, unless you're outside of Retsy.
I don't know if anyone's talking about robots. I haven't heard about it.
Retsy
We're having a whole robot hardware area next to like Whitney Kid. We've got the robotic dogs. We've got the drones flying. We've got a humanoid walking. So there's all different types.
Right, but I'm thinking,
yeah, you're right. Not a lot.
There's not like, hey, take this maintenance class on robots. New robots coming in. I don't see robots at trade shows. I mean, outside of like at the local, right? I mean, at the national, you're going to see the robots.
They're cleaning. They're cleaning bathrooms. They're doing hallways now. They're doing the outside buildings. But you're
windows,
right.
Yeah, but we're still not. But we're not talking about that. Yeah. This is the most robot conversation I've had ever.
I love robots.
around the industry, right? And it's obvious. We know they're coming.
So if you remember Sam Walton at Walmart said, one of his goals was to allow every American family to be able to afford a better lifestyle. And I think we can do the same thing in apartments. If you think about it, if, people are being strained right now across the board, owners, managers, residents, everyone. If we can figure out how to use technologies that are no longer just for the ultra wealthy, but they can actually be used by every single person. Think about it. Think about the tablet in your lap. Think about the phone we use. Those used to just be for what I remember when I first got my first iPhone, I think it was called the 3. Can't remember. But I remember my boss telling me, that's dumb. I'll never use it. It's overpriced.
Right.
He had one 6 months later.
Yeah.
And nowadays, kids who are 10, 12, and 15 have a nicer phone than we do, right? Yeah. They're spending more money on that tech. So that's what I think is like, it's a huge opportunity, whether it's hardware, and you think about operations, isn't it like 50-something%? I heard a survey. It's like 55% of the reason that people move out of a building is maintenance of facilities. It's like the actual upkeep.
I mean, to piggyback on Brian's question, I mean, to you guys' point, I'm asking, why are those conversations not happening at the associations? I know they're happening at Retsy. They were happening at NMHC, which prompted the formation of Retsy. But like outside of that, I mean, NAA is not. I mean, yes, they've got some upcoming things on artificial intelligence, but from a robotics standpoint, service, any of those issues, where are the associations missing the gap?
I'm going to quote somebody, and then I want to hear your thoughts. I'm going to quote Steve Halsey. It is the biggest mistake that people could make is going business as usual, going back to basics. It is death for a company. Oftentimes, there's certain things that make sense to go back to basics on. But when it comes to tech, you have to look at the innovation around the corner. Steve Halsey came to us with a tech idea almost 10 years ago. He flew into San Francisco and said, we want you to take your tech and build it like this for Amly, when he was the CEO of Amly. And it was incredible that we all told him no. Luckily, we ended up talking more and we decided to do it. But that's the thing, is most things that are incredibly successful and make an impact on the world usually aren't easy. Afterwards, you're like, oh, that was brilliant. It made perfect sense. But in the moment, you're like, that's silly. That seems like a game.
Yeah.
That's a joke. And I'll quote someone else, Palmer Luckey at Anderl. Palmer's incredible. He says, everything I come up with isn't new. I'm cheating. I'm reading 50, 75, 100, 150-year-old books that tell me what's going to do. They just didn't know how to do it. We now can take the tech and I can create the drone. I can create the blimp. I can create all these things that they were dreaming about 200 years ago. And I think that's the opportunity, is we have to question ourselves if sometimes we get too smart for ourselves. So the greatest people I know come on our show, especially I think about someone who's going to come on our show soon, Cindy Clare, right? Cindy Clare is one of the people who brought me into the association. She pulled a chair out for me when I was in one of those committee rooms probably about 12 years ago. And I was walked into a committee room where they had the committee table and then all the chairs on the outside of people who weren't on the committee, and they were all full. And I was standing against the wall. And then she saw me and she waved me over. Said, take this chair right next to me. What was funny is she was the committee chair, right? And I didn't, I was like, okay. And she took me under her wing. And it's people like that who aren't too big for their, they're open to helping and passing it on and paying it forward and that mentality. And also, I believe the other greatest thing, one of our other guests, you might think of who it was. He said, we have to realize that every person has a voice. Is that oftentimes, and I remember this from my first job at Macy's corporate, is that people told us over and over, that won't work. Oh, that's already been done. And then there was a random contest for $1 million that you could get $1 million of budget if you came up with an idea. I came up with an idea, and my boss even told me that we already tried. And I said, I still want to push it forward. It won. And it was just a simple idea, but it was something they had tried 10 years before. We tried it again. And I said, and I just interviewed everybody and said, what did you do wrong? And that innovation was, okay, let's go do it. And I need your help. I need you as the expert to help me avoid the things you learned. And that's where I think, we can get people who have a different creativity. Like Airbnb's founders were not engineers.
Right.
They were marketers. So I look for incredibly creative people. And that's why I like Adrian. He's really creative. He thinks differently. He has the expertise, but he's never afraid to get so big in himself that, he knows and he looks for different ideas.
Yeah, I'm interested in your answer on this too, because I can tell you, business as usual is what associations are really good at.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, first of all, I don't have intimate knowledge of what happens inside those associations. I could only speak from outside looking in and with my contacts with the various associations from the top NA to locals, right? I would like to say that it's up to those individuals that are at the very top to understand that we're not operating in a bubble. We're part of the world. The world currently is moving at a pace that our minds cannot even comprehend. Our mind is not as sharp to comprehend how fast technology moves in today's date. And for us to think that, we're going to do things like we always have done, it's a suicidal thing. Let's just look at a few things that, the associations are driving. And education will be one of them. You mentioned education earlier. I really want to stay on education a little bit. And how do we teach? You said, how do we teach, robots? No, I would like to start with how do we teach, period, right? And when you go to associations events and you see the education part events, you're going to see what type of information is being shared out there. Is this something that I can find on my own on YouTube? Is this something that, ChatGPT cannot deliver for me at my fingertips? What is it? What is it out there that adds value to me as a viewer, right? I think that has to be, right? Instead, how do we create all those vetting process, which vetting has to exist. But then I would like to see a process of vetting that's based on forward thinking and not for stuff that we've been doing for decades. And by the way, the same people have been doing, right, for decades, providing that so-called information and education, because at the end of the day, we have to understand how people want to learn. People do not want to learn like sitting in front of the computer for 60 minutes or 30 minutes, trying to memorize information just enough to take a test and pass, so then they forget all of that. That has zero effect on improving that employee's life and their skill set. People don't necessarily want to go to a presentation where they're just seeing a series of slides with the same information recycled as tweaked year after year after year. We have to find minds, in my opinion, and people that are disruptors. And I had to say, as a general rule, you will not find the disruptors within your group. You have to look outside. You have to have the humility to say, we're behind times. we have to look forward to others that are doing things that are 2100, the year 2100. What do they do? Look for the most advanced and try to get people from there to teach us. Instead, going to the same sources over and over and over again, recycle and repackage the same information and use that as education. Try to do that. And again, like that's not for me to decide. That's just going to be up to the leadership. Do we have the leadership that actually is looking outside, recruiting and bringing the most brilliant minds that are out there in the world to teach us how we do it versus not how we always have done it, and think that that's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenge in a nonprofit world to be at the cutting edge of technology. But I think in order to do things effectively, I would agree that we have to look.
I'm curious. So why do you think that's a challenge? I'm really curious. What is like? Could you describe the challenge? Like, where does the challenge lays into this?
It's a chicken and egg game, right? I mean, it's you may have to spend the money to create that value. And sometimes the nonprofit, so to get an education director who is thinking along the lines of what you're thinking would probably cost exorbitantly more than what that position historically generates or requires. But I think it takes seeking out that individual who looks at things differently, who maybe isn't someone who has worked their way up through the association kind of chain of organizational leadership to get to a point where they're there, because then they've got all those continually habits built in. What you're talking about is identifying someone who's in the private sector who's doing an excellent job at educating on the cutting edge of technology, or even beyond the cutting edge of technology, and trying to get that individual to come from an environment in which they can make significantly more money in order to make an industry or an organization better for significantly less money would be what I would guess.
Yeah, but most leaders make considerably less.
But I think
they do it because they're passionate about it.
I think there's opportunities inside of. I think what you're saying is we're not tapping the people that are outside the people that are normally there. And so, like, we have our set committees, but why don't we have a robot committee, an AI committee, right? That's talking about this is where the new technology is. And the people that are interested in talking about this can come in, because I think everything that we do as an association is always looking backwards on how we've done it. Yeah. We don't have a lot of people who are saying, here's what's going, and we need to have a committee that's ready to talk about it now. So when it's here, we can implement it. I think that would bring in these voices of like, hey, I'm not overly interested in talking about the trade show the way you've done it for the last 40 years. I'm interested in talking about these new ideas. We're going to have this conversation. And you look around going, I don't know. We don't really have that committee, right? It's like, okay, well, I'll go over here by myself. And I think that's probably where you're getting at.
I'm getting at that. And yes, maybe we can't afford to pay someone a lot of money to revolutionize the way we're thinking education. But maybe we could outsource part of that to bring some of that newness to us, and also contract out individuals as speakers, as educators from outside of the industry. I can't think that'll be a fortune. We don't have to just go for, let's say, the best marketers in the world, like the Gary Vaynerchuk of the world, even though that'd be nice, right? That'd be nice. But with understanding that there's budget constraints, there's a lot, like, I think YouTube, for example, is like an incredible source of knowledge, really. It's also like, a system that you have to be careful because not all of it, none of it is vetted, right? So sometimes you might be learning the wrong things.
Right, but how many techs get hired in and they're like an AC operator, or they do this, and now they're in the industry and they're stuck with a problem and they're on their phone looking at a YouTube and trying to figure it out, and then they go, okay, I'll try this, right? Does that take place in the field?
It takes place every day. And there are people I heard just criticizing, right? Well, they're checking YouTube, but YouTube is not vetted information. So my answer to them is that, do you have a better tool for them?
Right.
What do you do for them that's better than YouTube? And they don't. It's very easy to just say and look at like what's not working, but just someone that goes out of their way to like pull up that, trying to find the answer, it's incredible. So to me, it's like, how do we encourage those people? How do we support them into their pursuit of like finding the truth, finding a solution? Yeah. That's an incredible thing. And I think technology here is going to come. And what technology is going to do is going to do the training and the education in a conversational way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not in a way that I described earlier, not in a way that you will be watching a YouTube video. It's going to be question and answer. It's just like we dialogue right now. Let's just say that you're an expert and I'm the rookie, and I will try to find the answers of troubleshooting an issue. And I learned that by asking you questions and you answering. This is exactly what technology available right now to deploy is going to do.
Right.
It's actually doing already, right? It's not at scale.
We think about education from the association aspect of we will teach you something and then you go do it. And right now, education is, I have to figure out how to do this now. I'm going to educate myself on the spot.
Practical.
And we don't talk about an education and anything. It's like, how do you learn on the spot? How, if you're sitting there, here's your problem, where do you go? And to what you said earlier, what you can't go is to the guy who worked on the property for 30 years to answer the question because he's not there anymore.
Yep.
You have to figure it out on your own, right?
Yep.
And then how is that instant education? That's something that the industry isn't really, I mean, the industry's doing, but the association's not exploring. It's the instant education piece.
To your piece about, and the questions around how do associations try to move faster? Because that is the challenge of most nonprofits, most associations, and most government does not want to change things dramatically because every time you change one thing, it affects a whole group of people. You're going to get a lot of phone calls, right? Every single change I've learned. I always thought, everything should be running like a startup. The funny thing is you should have the mentality of a startup. I believe that's the most important thing is you have a mentality of a startup. You understand and you think through the challenges, the things that we can do better and why and how does it help? How does it help? But I think one of the biggest things is if you can think about what you were talking about, video, how are you going to teach people? That is one of the greatest things I believe most, if not all associations should be doing is education, getting the voice out there. Too many people are waiting to the last minute around legal issues.
Right.
And they are not educating ahead of time. And then what happens is you have people come out at some associations or some folks in some organizations, and they're robots. And they wonder why there's such low viewership online. And one of the biggest things is it's not human. Number two, it's a company telling you. And so to your point, I think that's the biggest opportunity I believe is at every trade show, at every event, there should be more content. Mr. Beast, just has to spend on his team. He doesn't pay anybody. He doesn't advertise. He's not hiring NBC, right? He's not hiring a PR firm. Well, maybe now he is. But, but the amount of growth he got and the amount of eyeballs. And so if you think about it, if you get teams at these nonprofits to think about what Adrian's talking about getting content out that's helpful and actually attracts new members.
Right.
Because I think many people are afraid of cannibalization of, wait a second, we got to put this behind a wall. And absolutely, a lot of things you have to put behind a paywall and, behind the scenes. I think you need to be educating more, whether it's how to get more involved, where we need your help, at trade shows, more content, and have experts like you all and us telling your story for you to followers and getting it in a different I always like to say, let me tell your story really when I make an introduction. One of the best things I love doing is saying, do you mind if I give your introduction really quick at a cocktail party, whatever? And then you fix fix it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and say it the best I can.
And one of the key differences we have between like a traditional nonprofit and the associations is that we're completely member run. And so if the members want to go in that direction, the members can take the organization in that direction.
Yep.
And I think there's problems why it doesn't have. Sometimes the organization is resistant to going in a new direction and they're like, no, we want to do this. Or sometimes the members don't show up and say, this is how we want to go, right? And so with some of the associations I work with, I always say, we're not going to say no, we're going to say how. And then we're going to say who. This is a great idea. How are we going to do it and who's going to do it? Are you expecting me, the association guy, to pull this off and do all the work? Because I don't have the capacity to do it. And so that's usually where no comes from. It's like, oh no, you just put all this on my plate. If it's how, then it's like, okay, what are you thinking that how we're going to do it? Now it's who. Or are we going to find some members and volunteers, put this together? Because I can administratively support you. But if you're just dumping this idea in my lap and expecting me to go execute for you, that's not what we're going to do here. And so I think that's a big piece that kind of needs to evolve in. Because I like what you said. When I look at associations, I look at that we need to approach the associations now in two distinct pieces. We have the legacy, and we have the startup. And I use the term startup. And the startup is people that don't have any idea what the association is for, why it exists, what these designations mean. You have to educate them in a way that this association just started 2 years ago and get them involved at that level, right? And then you have to take the legacy people and build it on and then figure out where to merge them together. The problem is that your legacy people don't understand how to communicate with your startup people, and your startup people aren't fans of the legacy people.
Yeah.
So they just don't, it doesn't go anywhere. And these guys are retiring, and these guys are like, I don't want to do it that way. And so you have to figure out how to run two at the same time.
Absolutely.
It is a challenge. I mean, you almost need a translator in the middle between those two groups to try and convey the message of why it's important. Because to your point, if they don't have a voice, they're just going to go away, and then you're going to be left with a dying organization, not even one that's just there sustaining. It's actually going to die because you're running, members who are interested and invested in making the association better, going somewhere else.
I also think technology will solve that, and it might sound like an obsession, right? Because I keep bringing it up. I think in a way it is, to be honest, but it's going to be a combination of technology and also the new ways of thinking, of approaching, right? And it's not a age-related situation because honestly, I think I'm more inclined to like test new technologies and everything. My son is like a lot more conservative than I am. He's very skeptical of AI and things like that. He doesn't want to hear about it. I think eventually will come around, but I'm the one that searches all the time. So to go back to this, we're an industry that's perfectly positioned for disruption. And when you're gonna see this on the operator side, that's gonna happen because you mentioned who are those associations. They're a good representation of their members. When disruption is coming into the industry, it's not going to come at the association level first. It's going to come to the companies, right? The companies will be disrupted. They will do business that doesn't look anything like it looks today, or resembles very little with what we're doing today. The next thing you'll see to the associations. I'm just gonna give you some food for thought here. The way McDonald's, not so many people know McDonald's is one of the largest real estate owners in the world. What do they have in common in property management? Low pay people. The difference between them and us is that they figure out how to build a multi-billion-dollar empire with low pay people. They could bring that model, tweak it, make it work in an industry. If they're making a play for multifamily, they're going to be successful. Look at Amazon, the way they deliver and everything. None of our current MRO vendors is equipped to compete with Amazon. If Amazon makes a real play in multifamily, it's game over for them, right? So I give you this, an Uber for labor. Imagine a platform that's an Uber for labor that matches people that don't want to make W-2 full-time commitments with companies that only have a need for a temporary need for a day, for 4 hours a day, for 3 hours a day, matching that, creating that platform, that marketplace where talented people are meeting with needs of various properties. I don't think that's far-fetched. I don't think that the Uber model will replace the W-2 model, but it's going to be a substitute for that segment that we're not capable of like filling right now. On the other hand, I was mentioning humans, and I strongly believe that there's segments that are like very much underserved by the industry. And I'll give you 3 examples. One, it's young population in underserved neighborhoods, those with very high crime levels and no real opportunities, no good jobs in there. We could attract them and put them through a training program, apprenticeship program, and making them a maintenance technician, right? Secondly, women. Only 2% of maintenance workforce in multifamily is women. You imagine what would that do if we could increase that number to 10%? How many more women we could bring into industry? And third, military. Military individuals, transitioning back into the civilian life. If we're just focusing on these 3 and we do it the right way, then this could change the entire game and really solve a good part of that labor shortage for the multifamily maintenance. I've actually started an initiative that's going to address this precise issue. And we have people on board at the highest level of the organizations, people that I'm sure you both know and respect, executives. It's going to happen pretty soon. And I'm very excited to announce that.
I'm excited about that too. This is the part of the show for us that we call the lightning round. So we have a list of questions that you don't know what they are, and then we will ask them, and then we'll ask you to answer them as quickly as you can, or the first thing that comes into your head, whatever is appropriate. So,
Or inappropriate.
yeah, actually, inappropriate is more fun.
Inappropriate. Let's do it.
So, Todd, do you want to start?
Yeah. So
Okay.
this is always our favorite part. So first job in multifamily, what was it, Chris?
It was laundry locker, fell into it, and started dry cleaning and laundry through lockers in apartment buildings, and created an entire new sector worldwide. And then we jumped into, from that, we evolved it into Luxor one.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Adrian?
A part-time groundskeeper back
Okay.
in 2003 was the only official job I could get with no history in the United States and not speaking the language. So grateful for that one.
Okay.
The last country you were in?
Romania.
No. Okay.
That was easy. It just happened a few weeks ago.
Are you from Romania?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was Spain. Went with my wife for
Okay.
a trip. Yep.
Which part of Spain?
I went to a few different spots, Granada and Madrid, and then Sevilla, and then went over to across to Africa and over to Portugal.
Nice.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
trying to talk my wife into going to Malta for a trip
Okay.
next year.
Yeah,
So,
Tenerife is also right when I was in Romania. I flew to Romania, took my mom to Tenerife, and came back to Romania and flew back home here. Tenerife is just an incredible destination.
Oh, wow.
It's the best weather in the world. Imagine that is better than San Diego. You never sweat. It's incredible, and never too hot and never too cold.
But what country is that technically in?
It's in Spain,
It's
but
in
it's
Spain?
an island.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right,
Okay.
gotcha.
Keep that in
the
mind.
Canary Island.
Okay.
Yeah, the Canary Island.
Best networking icebreaker you use at events. Chris, you may have given this question earlier.
So it was something I asked my and I've learned to ask people is challenge they're going through right now, superpower, and then what are they most passionate about, most excited about right now.
Okay.
For me, generally speaking, want to learn about you. What do you do? Oh man, that's a great conversation start.
Yeah.
Understand about
Biggest podcasting lesson learned?
Everyone starts somewhere. Every person I've met has a original story and usually isn't what they had planned.
That's a great question. But that's a hard question because I've learned a lot. I just think never underestimate the power of compound interest and of persistency.
Mm-hmm.
I look back to my first episodes of content, and it's kind of embarrassing the way if I was to look at it with a critical eye, the way it was and the way things have evolved 200 plus episodes later, how much I have learned. Really, it's what it is. So I think that's an incredible lesson out there.
Yeah. I'd say always have a good sound guy.
Yes, you need a good sound guy.
Yeah, that's a hard. We're still learning that lesson on and off. I had a big situation at a Blueprint where we shot in an area that had a lot of noise around it. It was a populated area, networking area, and we relied on on the labs, and it turned out that they didn't pick up anything. So an entire incredible podcast got ruined. That was not a good thing.
All right, lightning round.
Quick favorite city for conferences and why?
Atlanta, baby.
Okay.
Love Atlanta. It's close to home. Great food. Great people.
Yeah, I have two of them. Atlanta, obviously, because it's that's where I live. But secondly, it's easier for people to get direct flights.
Mm-hmm.
Second one will be Vegas. What I like about Vegas, as a tourist, I would never go to Vegas. That's not my type of place to visit. As a conference goer, I love going there because you could literally just set up shop, same hotel where the conference takes place, and you would never have to leave. and I typically don't leave unless it's like walking distance. You got 20 restaurants, all kinds of cuisine right there. You got captive audience out there. Like you make the most of your time.
It's almost like they
Vegas.
planned it that way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna spin off on this real quick then. So then, favorite conference. What's your favorite conference then?
I'm biased. Favorite by far is going to be OpTech. It's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah. OpTech, senior leadership, technology across the board, and
Makes
great
sense.
speakers.
It's the right lane for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a favorite conference?
Yeah, I think it's Blueprint.
Okay.
I like how they do networking, and I like how they keep things compact. They don't make you travel in between various areas. Everything's tight, and it forces you to meet people. And at the end of the day, that's the most invaluable thing that you could get. Their networking area is like so small, cramped. You see hundreds of people. I met this year probably like 30 people that I wanted to meet, but I didn't have anything scheduled. Literally, I turned around and here they were. So we just had a conversation right there on the spot. Incredible concept, and seems like it's getting better every year.
All right. What's one habit that keeps you disciplined?
For me, it's doing things in the moment. You usually see me with a pen and a paper or my phone, and I'll even tell the person now, I'm going to do that right now. Do you mind if I send you a note? Oh, or hey, can I throw it on my calendar? Or hey, like we just talked about for tonight. I try to do things in the moment. I learned from Andrew Huberman, our brains are basically trained to forget 99% of what we see. And that kind of hit me. And I was like, wow, okay, yep, I need to just do it now.
For me, it's walking in the morning. Kind of sets the tone for my day. Even this morning, it was like 30 degrees, 30 in the 30s. I did my walk before I left my house. It sets the tone, and also, especially when the weather outside is harsh, I like to believe that that's kind of like the toughest thing that I'm going to encounter. So when you start eating a frog in the morning, like the rest of the day, stress might not be all that, things might not look all that bad.
All right, last question. Dream guest for your podcast.
It's tough. I have such a long list, and I've been chasing them forever. I think
Johnny Depp's wife.
I think she's the second guest, and maybe I'm getting her this week. We'll find out about that. But I think Gary Vaynerchuk.
Okay.
Wouldn't be mine. I think probably I was thinking it might be Mr. Beast, but no, it might actually be maybe Barbara Cochran. She'd be an interesting one in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
With her expertise in real estate. Fortunately, like I was going to say like having Toby on, but I think he's going to come on. So a lot of people who I thought we would never have on are going to come on, which is exciting.
That's awesome. Well, great. Well, this is the part where we then
What's one thing that you want the audience to take away?
I just think that for me, the biggest thing that I hope that they will take away is to listen to the entire conversation. And I think there'll be things that they might find useful. I know that it's a very big ask when you're doing long form content, especially an hour or over an hour. It's hard to keep everyone, but I think that'll be as big of an ask as this is. It's just kind of like listen to entire conversation, and I think there'll be a lot that will make you think about the way things are going, and the way things they could be going for you.
I love getting feedback from people. It's awesome actually when people send you a note and say, hey, really found that interesting, or hey, and it's funny how many people reach out, especially in the DMs, or will just text you and say, hey, saw this episode with so-and-so, that was so good, or they tell that person. That's what I love. So people continuing to do that, pay it forward, be kind. For me, realizing like life, we spend so many hours and time. It's important to be kind and be generous to other people, pay it forward. So many people have done that to me.
Well, now we get to share the one thing we learned. The obvious thing for me is robots. And AI is all hot, right? But still the idea, the concept of robots is different than AI. And it really was a little of a shift for me to like, hey, maintaining robots, thinking about robots, how robots interact, how we're going to do that, and the maintenance of robots. This whole new industry is coming into our industry, and we're not ready for it mentally yet. And I'm like, boom, it's robots.
Yeah, I mean, I think the takeaway for me from the association standpoint is trying to look and exploring ways of not just continuing, okay, these are the committees that we have, like find one and get plugged in. It's let's look at where the industry is as a space and what things are hot or driving the industry right now. And do we need to look at formulating a committee that provides an avenue for people to discuss those things and either come up with ideas, whether it's training classes, whether it's just discussion groups, whether it's a think tank of some sort. And I think it's something that associations need to explore to give newer members or younger existing members a voice and an area in which to have those discussions. And I think in the absence of that, you're not creating that. We talked about the difference between leading and managing. What you're doing by creating that space is you're creating the vacuum and encouraging those people to step into it as leaders of the organization to take those technology pieces and figure out, okay, how can we as an association start educating our members and getting their hands around it? Because to your point, there's this danger. It's like this negative connotation of AI that it's going to lead us in my kids' generations and Chris's kids' generations, even maybe in your kids' generation, that it's going to lead to this unemployment rate of like 40% in their generation. Is they're the crossover generation as we go from kind of human oriented to AI or technology robot oriented. There's this gap in the middle, and I don't think it needs to be that way. I think if we look at it as an augmentation to what the human services can provide and look at things that can be automated, but if we're not creating that opportunity to have those discussions, it's as if the association is just ignoring that they exist.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Well, thank you for letting us be guests on your podcast, and thank you for being guests on our podcast. It was a wonderful time. For those who made it all the way through, they should probably find out how to check us all out. So for you guys, where do you access your podcast and your websites? And I think you guys got a lot of stuff going on, so we'll give you like 7 minutes to explain all of it.
You got it. So Adrian C. Danila on LinkedIn. Most of the podcast content it's also posted by me in there. So if you're connected with me on LinkedIn, chances are you're going to learn. Additionally, we are the Multifamily Hangout and Multifamily X, the two podcasts. Well, there's 4, but these are like the main 2. They could be found on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, everywhere, like all the major podcast platforms. We also have a YouTube channel that has all the content like harvested and posted in there. It's the Multifamily X channel on YouTube, and we also have TikTok. We also have Instagram, Facebook pages. So those are kind of like, I'll say, secondary. We're also on Rumble. We're trying to be on, as many platforms as possible, but say
wherever you like to go.
Wherever you like to go, you're going to find the Multifamily Hangout or Multifamily X podcast.
Yeah, and then myself, mainly on LinkedIn, do a little bit on other platforms like X and Facebook, but not too much. I like to do video, but you can usually find me at a trade show. So whether it's NAA, going to the committee meetings, having gone through Lyceum, how to be a good steward for the industry and support everyone. But, we tour anything that's tech and real estate oriented.
Well, so you said back to the basics. So it's the in-person platform, right?
Back in person. I love it. So, you'll catch me at OpTech and Red Sea. You'll catch me at NMHC and then, of course, NAA. Yeah.
Todd, where are we located?
We can be found at cltpr.com. We can also be found on any platform in which you take in your podcast. That's Spotify, Apple Music. I don't know if we're on Amazon. Are we on Amazon?
I don't know. The easiest way, CLTPR Management /POD.
Okay.
And there you are. You probably got to put a com in there too, but no fun.
And please, when you listen, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You'll be made aware of any new episodes, and be sure to leave us a 5-star review.
So I've been told to say this. All the information we just said out loud is found in the show notes.
Oh, great.
So there you go. Go to the show notes and get it.
And I forgot to say, goinfiniteniches.com. That's my website.
Oh, yes.
There you go. Say that. So thanks, guys. This has been a blast. Thanks for coming to Atlanta to hang out with us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. I hope you found this interesting.
Oh, this is great. The content was
I always love the conversation.
so solid. Yeah.